Hello chess friends! In this lesson we will continue to talk about Rook Endgames, and if you missed to see my first lesson about Rook Endgames, please take a look about that. There is information in right upper corner. So we are working on Endgames Rook and the Pawn versus Rook, and in the previous lesson we have seen all about when the pawn is on the 7th rank. If the pawn is on the 6th rank, the things will get to be more complicated. And let's take a look at this position on the board. First thing what we can notice is that black has perfect position for both of his pieces. His king is on the shorter side of the board and it is on g7, not on g8 square. And black's rook is on a file and at the same time he controls the promotion rank. So he has the maximum of the possible checking distance, and this is the best possible position for black rook. That is why in this position, with white on the move, the game is drawn. There is no any chance for white to make progress. It is simply not possible for white pawn to reach to the 7th rank, and at the same time to stop black king to approach closer. Let's see now some possible options for white. If, for example, rook d8 move, then black will play rook a7. And now if rook d7, just rook goes back to a8, simply going back and forth, no progress. And if king goes to d6, rook a6 check, king d5, rook a5 check, and after king e4, let's say, simply king f6, and the game is immediately drawn, of course. So rook d8 will not work. If rook c7, for example, then just rook a1. And after king d8, now king is in check. Now not king f8, of course, because it will be e7, e8, promotion in a forced way, but king f6. And now after e7, rook a8 check. And of course, if rook c8, we simply trade and win the pawn, the game is drawn. And if king goes to d7, then the move which draws the game is excellent move, king f7, controlling the promotion square twice, and there is no chance for white to make progress. If he plays something like rook c1, we have strong and good enough checking distance, and we just check rook a7, and if white keeps his rook on the 7th rank, then just rook e8 attacking the pawn, and after king d6, we move our rook back to a8 and threatening again, checking on the side, the game is drawn, there is no any progress. If in the starting position we have king d6, immediate check, now king f8 is the best move. King f6 will be wrong because of rook f7 check, and then black's king will be cut off f-file. So now after rook f7, simply king e8. And after rook e7, king d8, rook h7, rook a6 check. And after king e5, rook a1 move, and this is now the same as Philidor position, which we are going to talk about later in this lesson, but this position is also drawn. And the last possible move which we can try for white in this position is, let's say, rook d1, then just rook a7. If rook d7, rook a8, repetition, and if king d6, then again king f8, of course. And after rook h1, we start checking. And now this is important moment, making check now rook a5 would be wrong, because king will go to f6, so we need to play rook a2 and apply the same ideas as from the Philidor position, which we are going to learn a little bit later. This is now simple draw by checking from back. So the starting position with the pawn on the 6th rank, and the perfect position for black's king and black's rook is drawn. In this position now we have one small difference. Black's rook is not anymore on a file, it is now on b file, which means that black's rook does not obtain the maximum of the checking distance. And white's rook is now on a7, and here white will win the game because the position for black's pieces is not perfect. Let's see how white wins. White will apply this interesting triangulation maneuver with his king in order to lose one tempo and to set up the same position again, but to be black on the move. so king d6. If now, for example, king f8, then king d7, and if king g7, king e7, and we obtained actually what we want. If instead of king g7, rook b1 is played, then simply e7 and e8 direct promotion and win for white. If after king d6 check black plays king f6, now we play king to d7. And if now rook b1, we win the game by playing e7, and after rook d1 check king e8, and after rook e1 just king f8, and after rook h1 we simply check the king, and then we easily promote and win this endgame. So the conclusion is that black must go back with his king on g7 and keep his rook on the last rank. And then king e7 of course, and black is on the move now in the same position as the starting position. The options now for black are to move the rook to b1 to abandon the last rank, or to play king to g6. If king goes to g6, rook a1, and after rook b7 check, king d8. The point is in short checking distance. There is no long enough checking distance for black's rook. And after king f6, nice and easy winning move is e7. Of course that it is wrong to capture this pawn because now black will lose his rook and white easily wins the game. And if after e7 black continues with checks, otherwise white will simply promote, so rook b8 check, king c7, rook e8, and now not king d7 because rook will capture the pawn with check, but king d6. And again, of course, if some move like this, then we simply check the king and we easily win the game thanks to the short checking distance which black rook has. And if rook takes the pawn on e7, of course we check and we win the rook on e7 and black will resign the game. That is the option if after king e7 black plays king g6. If black plays rook b1 immediately, now the winning move is rook a8. Taking control of the last rank by our rook. And when black continues with his checkings from the side, it is a very short checking distance. We learned that in our previous lesson. And after king d6, simply if rook b6 check, just king d7, rook b7, and then king c6, and now this is easy win. Promotion cannot be stopped and white wins the game. And after, in this position after king d7, if not rook b7, if king goes to f6, for example, then just rook f8 check, and when king goes off f-file, simply e7, e8, easy promotion. And also in this position here, instead of rook b6 check, black may try to play king f6, but then again the same thing. Just rook f8, king e7, e7, and black resigned again because he's not able to stop the promotion. So this starting position, once again, is win for white, and the reason for that is not perfect setup for both of black's pieces. Black's king stands great, but rook is not perfectly placed. This is the position with the pawn on the 5th rank. And let's see now how will white win this game. White will play, of course, king c7 here, creating a path for his pawn to promote. And now there are two possible moves, rook c1 to check the king, or to play this rook a1 move. But the problem with this move is so short checking distance, and black's king is on the longer side of the board, which is not good for black. After rook b8, very good move, and rook a7, there is rook b7. Of course, trading off the rooks will be very bad because it's easily winning pawn endgame for white. So he will probably play rook a8. And then king d7, great move. Not d6, because that will allow black king to approach closer to the pawn. King d7 is very important move. And after king f6, d6 now. And after king f7, rook b1. And again, it is a win because black has short checking distance. He is not able to make any progress. Again, great d7 move wins the game, because if the pawn is captured, just rook e1 check, rook d1 check, and win the rook on d7, and after check, simply this maneuver, and then king d6, again the same idea, easily wins the game. Easily wins the game. Also in this position, of course, we have rook e1 check and we win the rook. This is even more trivial win. But king c6 is more beautiful because it is a Zugzwang now for black. Anyway, after king c7, if rook c1 check, king d7, rook d1 attacking the pawn again, d6. And now the best for black is to keep his rook on d file. But we move our rook to a file and then move out our king. Rook c1 check, king d8, providing d7 square for our pawn. And now first rook a7 check, king e6, d7. And after rook h8 check and king c7, after rook h7, just king c8, the pawn cannot be captured. And if black just waits with rook g7, we don't need to promote immediately and play queen versus rook endgame. We simply check once, and if king goes to e7, we promote with check. Otherwise, we simply promote, and easy win for white. And this is now the famous Philidor position. We have mentioned this position earlier in our first example today. And the difference between all the positions which we have seen now is that when the pawn is on the 5th rank, black king is not somewhere on the side on the board. Black king is directly in front of the pawn. In this position, white will not be able to win the game if black plays precisely. And with black on the move here, he needs to understand that he needs to control the 6th rank with his rook, and he shouldn't allow white king to step on the 6th rank without first pushing the pawn to the 6th rank of a d file, which means that the best move is rook to a6. If rook goes to e1 check, it is very bad move because of king d6. So now the king is on the 6th rank and the pawn is not yet on the 6th rank. And let's see now how will white win this game. Now we have very similar position to what we have already seen in our previous example with the pawn on the 5th rank. And now simply d6, and this is the same position as the previous with very easy win, trivial win for white now. So if now he plays king e7 here, then we simply play promotion and then easily win the rook and win the game. This is very easy win. That is why checking immediately is bad. We need to play first move rook a6, and if black just waits and marks time, we do the same. We keep our rook on the 6th rank. After rook a7, rook g6, and white now notice that he must push the pawn forward if he wants to make any progress. Once he pushes the pawn forward, we immediately move our rook back and we start to threat checks from back to harass the king from the 1st rank. And the point is that it's not possible for white king to hide anywhere. These checks which white will make no progress, and now black starts with checks, and when if the king separates so much from the pawn, then we will just attack the pawn, win the pawn, and the game is directly drawn. So this is Philidor position, and now we know how to make draw using Philidor position. And this is the last position for this lesson and for rook and the pawn versus rook endgames. So in this position we are going to talk about safe squares. It looks like now that black might be in trouble because white king is very fast and he will easily reach this b7 or b6 square to help his own pawn to be able to release the rook and then to win the game by promotion. But actually it is just an illusion, because the game is easily drawn. Black king should just stay at so-called safe squares, and safe squares are g7 and h7, and he will wait until white king approaches closer to the pawn. The reason why only these two squares are safe squares is that if he plays, for example, this bad move king f7, now white has excellent move rook h7, threatening promotion, and if black rook captures the pawn on a7, then rook h7 check wins the rook on a7. So this is immediately win for white. So f7 is not the safe square. f6 is also, or g6 are not the safe squares as well, because there is of course check and then promotion directly in the next move. So the only safe square which black has at this moment is h7, and that is the best move. So you see that only h7 and g7 are safe squares, all other squares are losing the game immediately. And now there is no chance for white to win this game, because when white continues to approach closer to the pawn, black will just play on these safe squares, h7 and g7, and at the moment when the pawn is defended and when rook is free to move and to make the promotion threat, we start to check the king. And since there is no any shelter for the king cannot hide anywhere, it is easy draw for black. So after king c6, when king is not anymore defending the pawn, we just play rook a1 again, attack the pawn and force rook to stay there and to defend it. And after king b7, again the pawn is defended, rook is free to go, we continue with checks. And simply no chance to make progress for white. This game is easily drawn using these safe squares. That would be all for this video chess lesson. If you want to see some specific content in my video chess lessons, please place the comment below my video on YouTube, and also take a look at the suggested videos, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel.